Hey everybody, I'm Jordan Garza and welcome back to Unredacted. So on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Inflation Reduction Bill that was passed, I think on Sunday by the What? No. Potato, look. Today's a serious episode. Okay, we're talking about... Alright, fine. Okay, look, Potato wants me to do something. He wants me to look up something weird. And I'm just not in the mood to argue with him, so we're just going to... This one? Alright, okay. Oh, what is this? Okay, so Potato has found us what is called Dark Brandon. Potato has found something called Dark Brandon. I have no... Dark Brandon refers to a series of memes depicting a darker, edgier Joe Biden. The memes appropriate dark MAGA imagery. Okay, I see what's going on here. So the left doesn't understand memes clearly because when you make a meme about somebody, it isn't to make them look cool, it's to make fun of them. And I'm guessing this is, no malarkey. Okay, that's kind of funny. But they're misunderstanding how memes work. But still, this is really funny. Apparently, this is Chinese anti-Biden propaganda, but it just kind of makes Biden seem metal AF. Okay, a little bit. No malarkey. That's kind of funny. Wait, what is this? Oh, no. Titles. Brandon, the movie. Brandon, Mask of the Phantasm. Brandon Returns. Brandon Forever. Brandon and Robin. Brandon Begins. The Dark Brandon. That's funny. No. Dark Brandon rises. Joe Biden approval 45, disapproval 51. Yeah, it's rising, all right. What is this? Spread going into the remainder of March 2022. Dark Brandon, hashtag Dark Brandon, trended on Twitter, gaining more engagement. For instance, on March 27th, 2022, Twitter used Guy of Cumlin, okay, tweeted a giant Photoshop photo of Joe Biden pointing a gun in his mouth, captioning it "Dark Brandon." It's pretty dark, all right. Earning roughly 3,300 likes. Dark Brandon memes appear in mass April 2022. This is funny. What is this? Dark Brandon public execution. The terrorist guy neutralized. Gas prices neutralized. Oh, COVID-19 neutralized. You just had it. How is it neutralized? Antifa fully armed. That's right. Roe v. Wade 2 coming soon. And then Globo something communism. I imagine that these are funny. These are pretty funny. They don't understand how memes work, but they are kind of funny. This Dark Brandon ripping the Choco Taco out of the heavens to bring it back to life. Yeah, that's a dumb one. The Dark Brandon memes in the aftermath of the al-Zawahiri killing. Oh, right. Focused on Biden's lack of blinking during some official speeches. For example, a tweet seen below by Daylight Moon received 600 likes in a week, attributed to Joe Biden's lack of blinking. Oh, yeah, that one. Okay. Yeah, that one's not really that funny, but okay, all right. Potato, you had your fun, and we have important stuff to talk about. Important stuff. Like, the Inflation Reduction Act somehow having mostly environmental stuff in it. You know what? This is just probably another example of, small brain Texas man can't figure it out. We should talk to, smarter, better men. See, here we go. So this is from MSNBC, and yes, I'm using their video. It's fair use, and I'm not monetized, so bite me. But just listen to what he says, and some of this is hilarious. Some of it just really makes me mad. Hold on.
Act, and arguably against the odds, you got it passed. When are people going to start?
Real quick, against the odds, you got it passed because you didn't have the votes, and you used the Budget Reparations Act to push this through using only a majority vote.
Feeling the impact of this bill, Senator?
Well, I think they're feeling it already. I was on the phone this morning with my daughter, Caroline, who's 22 years old, and the joy in her voice that we had actually finally done something for climate change, I think.
The 22-year-old was joyful for climate change, even though the bill is called, but isn't the bill called Inflation Reduction Act? What does climate change have to do with inflation? He'll explain it. But 22-year-old did not care about your bill.
That's going to give Caroline's generation hope that they haven't had in a very long time, that Washington's actually trying to help build a little bit of a better world for them.
Washington is trying to get their, those new ESG scores up so that, you know, all of the global elites like them more. But never mind. Sorry.
And this bill, which
Just trying to be transformative,
substantially lowers healthcare costs by capping drug prices for seniors at
lowering. So capping off drug prices for seniors is great, but that doesn't affect inflation in any way, shape, or form.
$2,000, the biggest climate investment in our history.
Are you saying that helping the seniors is a climate investment, or is it a separate investment?
Closing tax loopholes on the wealthiest people and the largest corporations and reducing the deficit on top of everything else. That is a very different piece of legislation.
What? Dude, you didn't tell us anything. Okay, so it caps drug prices. It's going to, I guess what he meant was it's going to make an investment in the environment, and then it's going to reduce the deficit. None of those things reduce inflation. So if you wanted to call it the, you know, environmental kiss my ass act, that would have made a lot more sense than the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, these policies aren't exactly horrible. I don't mind capping drugs, and I don't mind investing in the environment. My issue now is with your naming. Name it something that makes sense. Don't tell us it's about inflation, because you know it's a hot button issue. The midterms are coming up, and you're looking for something to grab onto.
Legislation than what Republican majorities bring, which is usually just cutting taxes for the richest people and then
Also fair. That's pretty much all they do.
spending their time putting right-wing judges on the courts that are now have now reversed Roe versus Wade.
Okay, two things. One, yeah, you had to get your little political jab in there about Roe v. Wade. We get it. You're 3 weeks late. Second, I know I stumble on my words a lot, but this dude's done it like 4 times. I know you have either a prompter or like an army of assistants helping you write this out. So why are you like, come on.
So
Sorry,
there's a big difference coming out of here, and I think my own view is that the democracy is at stake this November, and I think we just gave our democracy a huge shot in the arm.
No, you gave your campaign chances a big shot in the arm. This has nothing to do with inflation. You named it inflation because that's a hot button issue because gas and food are inflated. None of these things affect that. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure part of this is in investing into electric cars, which means that's going to put more strain. It's going to put more strain on the gas companies, which is going to cause them to become reactionary. It's probably not going to get the outcome you want. On top of that, investing in electric cars doesn't change inflation, and it doesn't help gas prices in the next 6 months or before the midterm. So this is ridiculous. It's not. So this is a non-starter. It doesn't make sense to me.
No surprise to anyone, Republicans see this very differently. Let me play some examples of that, Senator.
Let's play some out of context clips.
Yet another reckless taxing and spending spree.
Mitch McConnell, you are correct. It's reckless, and us spending, what is it, like something to the tune of like $300 trillion doesn't make sense. That's going to reduce inflation. When you put more cash on the market, that makes the value of the dollar go down. When you pull more money from the National Reserve, it creates a surplus of money. So the more money you pull, which is basically printing, because you don't just poof more money out of the reserve. They print it. More money, the money is worth less. This is basic economics, and Mitch McConnell is right.
Democrats have already robbed American families once through inflation, and now their solution is to rob American families yet a second time.
Also right. Tax us. We didn't like it, so tax us again, and at the end of the year, have your army of collectors make sure you taxed us properly.
That was supposed to make everything better. Well, it became a recession plan. This is going to make everything worse.
You have any concern?
And they cut him off. So what was he going to say there? This, everything I've read, it seems to help with inflation, or not inflation. It seems to help the environment. Whew, they almost got me with their own buzzword. It seems to help with the environment. It seems to help with drug costs, but I don't see anything about reducing inflation.
Concern, Senator, that
where's the cuts on energy prices? Where's the cuts on food prices? Where are the market caps on certain things? Why is it all about the environment? This doesn't make sense.
Economic situation's worse instead of better.
It's not inflation based.
I don't, and I would say that another piece of good news this week was we had more than 500,000 jobs created in the economy. So I'm not sure what my colleague Lindsey Graham is talking about. And then
500,000 jobs. We're gonna get to it later, but 78,000, almost 100,000 of those 500,000 jobs they created are government employees, IRS agents. But we'll get to that. That's
With
later.
respect to Mitch McConnell, I mean, his position is the most absurd position of all. There's nobody in American history who's put more debt on the balance sheet of this country than Mitch McConnell. But the way he's
No one in American history. I have to do a deeper dive to maybe we can rack it up. But Mitch McConnell's been in government a long time. But Joe Biden's also been in government a really long time, and I believe he spent something like $5.7 trillion on a spending bill in his in his term. So I don't think Mitch McConnell is gonna. There's no way he's outdoing Biden just off of this year.
done it is by cutting taxes for rich people over and over again and saying that somehow that was going to trickle down to the American people.
That's how
and pay
economy
for itself.
works.
All lies. This is all lies. And
Like naming your environmental bill the Inflation Reduction Act. Is that the lie you're speaking about, Michael Bennett?
there are things I would have rather done here that we weren't able to do, like reverse the Trump tax cuts on the wealthiest Americans, because 52% of that went to the richest people.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 52% of that went to the richest people, but he's neglecting to say that the other 48% of that went to some of the most downtrodden people in the country. So yeah, what it did is it created a narrower middle class. I didn't like that bill very much, but the 48% he's just kind of not talking about are very, very low income people that also got that tax cut. But we're not going to talk about that because they love putting things out of context.
I would have loved
it's like watching
to
CNN.
make permanent my bill to extend the child tax credit, which cut childhood poverty in half last year.
Okay, I know people aren't going to like this, and I received it, so I can't say much. Child tax credit literally prints money out of thin air. You know how I was talking about the National Reserve? You're just pulling money out of the reserve to pay out this tax credit. And then, of course, I'm paying myself by paying taxes, and they're giving me a child credit. You're paying yourself. So them saying, oh, it's a credit, you're giving me a little bit of my money back. But at the same time, you're also saying, look, here's $1,000, but because we've printed this $1,000, it's worth like, $980. Nah, it's probably not. I'm not good at math. That's not the point. You can't give us our own money, make our money worth less, and then act like you're doing us a favor by saying it's a child credit. Come on.
Year reduced hunger by 25%. We didn't do that, but we closed some important loopholes. And unlike the Trump bill that McConnell supported, which added $2 trillion to the deficit, this one's reducing our debt.
So look, there you go. That one only added $2 trillion, and it didn't. Oh, it did go through. It added $2 trillion. Biden's got him by 3. And you're saying Mitch McConnell puts the most on? Come on.
By $300 billion. And I think, they can't stand what the facts really are. And it's true, too, with the other stuff. I mean, think about it. It's not just this bill. It's the bipartisan infrastructure bill. It's the CHIPS bill that's going to bring back.
I like the CHIPS bill, even though, it allowed Nancy Pelosi to inject herself a little extra capital by, not holding on to stocks that are going to drop because of
manufacturing here to the United States
bill.
of America. It's the PACT Act for our veterans, also bipartisan. The bipartisan gun pill, and even postal reform, something that's really important to rural Colorado. That looks triumphant compared to any legislative agenda that Mitch McConnell ever had, which is to say none, except cutting taxes for the richest people and blowing up the deficits, and then blaming that on Democrats. That's not going to.
So you're doing what Mitch McConnell says, adding your own legislation, blowing up the deficit, because you are going to blow up the deficit by adding money to the pool, and then blame the Republicans for all your problems. You're doing what Mitch McConnell's doing.
In this election.
And those are the arguments that you and your fellow Democrats are going to be able to make on the campaign trail. Your Republican opponent says you are raising taxes on struggling Colorado residents while you've been getting rich. He says you've increased your wealth by $31 million.
Oh, look at that. Another member of big government somehow managing to increase their wealth by 600%, something that, hedge funds could only dream of. He has time to, somehow outwork hedge funds while also, writing up these crazy 1,000-page bills. Oh, he doesn't write them because Congress doesn't really do their job on anything, or the House definitely doesn't do their job on anything.
Since you got to the Senate, I think part of his implication is, how can you relate to the average person in your state?
Well, first of all, I wish that were true about my wealth. I don't know where he got those numbers, and I know when my wife and kids see that, they're going to wonder where I've been hiding it because it's not remotely true. Second, this is a guy who literally posted on Facebook a picture of him and his wife riding their horses to buy sushi in his fancy neighborhood. So I don't know, who needs to prove who's in touch with work.
That's not nice. I do it way worse than him, but I'm not scripted. You have a whole team of
In Colorado, but I can tell you this: anybody who thinks that the Trump tax cuts for the wealthy were somehow a tax cut for working Americans is delusional.
Do I need to? My internet's being weird because someone cut the whole internet line to my entire town, so I'm using hotspot. But I really wish I hadn't turned my hotspot off to get all of this up, because I know for a fact that bill he's talking about also helped the lowest tax brackets tremendously.
Anybody who thinks that this bill raises taxes on working people is delusional, unless your definition for working people are the richest hedge fund managers in America and the largest corporations that make more than $1 billion in income and haven't been paying any taxes.
That's not true. Elon Musk paid the most taxes of anyone in American history this year. Stop with that. Everyone is paying you have an army of IRS agents that are making sure everyone's paying their taxes. I'm really tired of that argument. Yes, are there loopholes? Of course. Do they find ways to hide their money offshore? Of course. But this isn't anything new, and it's not anything this guy probably doesn't do with his 600% increase in wealth.
The American people are sick and tired of these folks.
I'm sick and tired of
paying
you.
1.5%,
I've been watching you for 3 minutes.
paying 2%. And all this says is you got to pay at least 15%. And by the way, that's less than school teachers are paying in the state of Colorado. Republican rhetoric for the lies that it is. It's done so much damage to this country. Think about 50 years of trickle-down economics and what that has wrought. It's created an economy.
Well, what it has wrought is, up until last year when Joe Biden took over, the best numbers in American history. I'm going to keep saying it. Trump had his problems, but he put up numbers. You guys care all about the facts, and we got to be truthful and fact check. The facts, the stats say Trump put up the best numbers in American history. Joe Biden's approval rating has dropped below Trump's lowest approval rating. That was after January 6th. Oh. But I'm not gonna go on and on about Trump. My real issue, again, from the beginning and outset of this, was it's called the Inflation Reduction Act, and it seems to only help your agenda, help your campaign that's coming up in, oh, look at that, 2 months, or 3, I guess. I'm sure it helps your bottom line, because I imagine you're invested in, new energy or green energy, because they always seem to know where to invest. Anyway, so let's, again, my big issue with this is, it doesn't seem to be an inflation act. It seems to be a climate bill. Name it a climate bill. Second, the whole thing of this was him to give tell us more about the bill, and he danced around and he gave talking points, and he basically just talked about the campaign coming up this year. And that's my big problem with it. Let's go over to the Washington Post. They're going to give us a little more in depth, what's actually going on with the bill, what the bill's supposed to do, and and then we can kind of, maybe I can look at it and go, okay, some of these things can be inflationary in nature, and then maybe I love to go back and say, hey, I was wrong, because I like to learn new things, but I don't think that's going to happen. So Senate approves Inflation Reduction Act clinging to long delayed health and climate bill. Senate on Sunday approved a sweeping package to combat climate change, lower health costs, raise taxes on some billion-dollar corporations, and reduce the federal deficit, as Democrats overcame months of political infighting to deliver the centerpiece of President Biden's long-stalled economic agenda. Now, his economic agenda has been stalled because he doesn't have one, but the party line vote was a milestone and tumultuous journey that began last year when the Democrats took control of Congress and the White House, with a promise to bring financial relief to ordinary Americans with a tie-breaking vote from Vice President Harris. 50-50 Senate set the bill to the House, which aims to approve it and sends the White House to Biden's signature later this week. Dubbed the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, the package would authorize the biggest burst of U.S. spending in U.S. history to tackle global warming, about $370 billion to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to 40% below their 2005 levels. Okay, a burst in spending that is historic is not going to reduce inflation. Let me give you an example of this, because maybe it doesn't make sense. This is going to sound weird, but stick with me. if Bill Gates is hoarding large amounts of money, which he is, that means that money isn't in circulation, it isn't part of the market. Therefore, that would actually be deflationary. Now, I don't agree with that, and I don't like Bill Gates, but that's actually deflationary because now you have less money on the market. So you spending $370 billion in a historic U.S. spending burst. You spending $370 billion in a historic level to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That doesn't help inflation. And then another thing, I mean, does it say what? Because it just says just to reduce. Does money reduce greenhouse gas? Is it that simple? We could have been throwing paper at it the whole time? In part by tweaking federal, hold on. The proposal also would make good on Democrats' year-old pledge to reduce prescription drug costs for the elderly. Again, I like that. That does nothing for inflation. In part by tweaking federal tax laws clearly to tax target cheats in some billion-dollar companies that pay nothing to the government bill, except to raise enough money to cover its new spending, Democrats say. The measure is expected to generate an additional $300 billion in reducing projected budget deficits over the next 10 years, though they have not yet furnished a final fiscal analysis of their legislation. This is one of the most significant pieces of legislation, things that Americans have longed for but couldn't get done. Okay, maybe the drug thing. Maybe the drug cap thing. I might give you that. The package is the byproduct of political realities in a narrowly divided Senate, where Republicans stood immovably opposed to the bill and Democrats had to negotiate among themselves to shepherd it to the chamber floor, and hinged the breakthrough deal negotiated in late July between Schumer, Senator Joe Manchin, hate that guy, moderator who nearly 8 months ago single-handedly scuttled a previous attempt to advance this party's agenda. Okay, so it gives us a little bit. Let's go over here to News Nation. News Nation is probably going to give us a little more in-depth. The passing Inflation Reduction Act was less than the president's original $4 trillion proposal, but still a substantial compromise package made up by the healthcare, climate change, deficit reduction strategies, and hoping tackling inflation and bring down deficits. After a marathon 27-hour weekend session of debate, Democrats held 51-50 with Vice President Kamala Harris casting the tie-breaking vote. And I don't know if they're going to bring it up in here, but I'm going to just bring something up. In normal circumstances, you need 60 votes to actually pass something. But I think because of COVID, there's a new thing that's called the Budget Reparations Act, Budget Reparations Vote. And what this does is means you only need a majority or a 50-50 vote, and then you go to the vice president for a tiebreaker. I think they did it this way because they knew the Republicans were going to do what's called a filibuster, just to say, no, we're not having it. We're not going to sit here and just let you do this. But, Democrats love to change the rules. They love to find loopholes, even though that's what this is to get rid of. And that way they get what they want. It's nothing new. They didn't have the votes properly, so they cheated. That sounds familiar. Allegedly. So I had to look a little bit, but so what's in the bill? Hey, it took me a while, but I found it. Set aside $300 billion for climate change infrastructure. Allow federal government to negotiate lower cost of drugs. Set a 15% mandatory minimum tax rate for corporations. Okay, that might do it. But wait, no, if you're taxing the corporations and getting more money in the oh crap. Provide $80 billion to the Internal Revenue Service to beef up agencies after years of cuts. Oh, I get it. They're going to help inflation we're going to throw an army of agents at it. Keep Biden's pledge not to raise taxes on those earning less than $400,000 a year. Okay, that's not middle class. The estimated $740 billion package is full of party priorities, including capping prescription drugs. Yeah, again, that's nothing to do. I want to hear about this IRS agent thing. Here we go. Democratic economic package adds 87,000 new IRS agents. A large cash infusion to the Internal Revenue Service is part of the economic package Democrats are working to push through Congress before August break. And this must be old, but the cash added is expected to go towards hiring 87,000 new IRS agents, roughly doubling the agency's size. The IRS says the money is expected to go towards efforts to crack down on wealthy tax evaders and modernize the technology. Okay, no one likes the IRS, and there's no reason to... No. This is going to be a way for people to crack down on those people. And, next year, when instead of getting your, $2,000 or $3,000 return, they're going to go, oh, by the way, so, we had a couple of extra guys kicking around. And they decided to look into you a little bit, and you actually owe us like another $200 and let's call it $50. So just send that to us, and we're all square. And you're over here like, wait. And are you going to spend the money to go get, a tax agent and look into it and figure out exactly what's going on? Is there some tomfoolery? No, you're just probably going to be stuck on the hook for that money, and that's just dirty. And look right here, the Congressional Budget Office projects the plan will generate an additional $203 billion in revenue for the federal government. Hey, I got it. We'll tell them it's about inflation, right? Then they'll agree to let us use their money to pay people to take their money. Come on. Oh man. Treasury Department estimates indicate that IRS enforcement could raise a net $400 billion over the next decade, while improving customer service to the extent that the agency could go from answering just 15% of phone calls to all of them. There is not enough money in the world you could throw at the IRS to make them have good customer service. No way. That's like saying you can make the DMV a cool hangout spot. There's not enough money. You can't do that. No one is going to like the IRS. All right. I think that's pretty much all I got on it. Ugh, man. Tato, anything you want to say before we log off? Yeah, that's about what I should have expected that. All right, guys. Hey, like and follow for more. Share it with your friends. Leave a comment below if you want to add something to the conversation. Keep your eyes open, your ears to the ground. We'll see y'all next time.